Welcome to the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. My name is Lauren Wells, here with my co-host, Chris Seveney. We're committed to providing you with the knowledge required to build wealth through real estate investing. Tired of consuming content about real estate? Stuck in analysis paralysis? Ready to do your first deal? As a member of our community, you will learn how to go from consuming content to taking that first step into the world of real estate investing. Our show is not about getting rich quick, but about providing you with the knowledge you need to take action. Join us as we speak with experienced investors who share action tips on how to escape the corporate world, start a thriving side hustle in the world of real estate, and go beyond your W-2 or 401k.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. I am your host, Chris Seveney, and today I have a special guest. I am joined by Jonathan Greene, who hosts the Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing podcast. If you have not listened to it, strongly recommend you do go out and listen to it. And he had me on it too, so I can pitch that as well. And Jonathan, of course, is in real estate. His main company, Streamline Properties, but Jonathan is a big advocate on Bigger Pockets, where him and I go back and forth on some conversations as well. And I wanted to have him on today. Jonathan, how are you?
Well, I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
No problem. And why don't you just take a brief minute? You've been in real estate for, I think when we talk, 30 plus years. So
yes.
Yeah, you've seen the last 2008 debacle.
Yeah.
Probably the 2001-ish kind of tech boom bust thing as well. I've been in 5 years less than you, but why don't you share people a little bit more about you?
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me on the show. So I was fortunate, my dad was an attorney, as am I, and he really didn't like being an attorney. So all he did was real estate. So I spent my weekends, because my parents were divorced, I would see him on the weekends, and all we would do was look at real estate from the time I was like one on. We'd go to yard sales. He'd make offers on every house at the yard sale. We'd look at dumps. We'd get the foreclosure list from the county records, this way before the internet, and we would just get access. And a lot of times I was actually small, so I could climb through the windows. This is old school. This is how we used to do it. The lists were there. We knew they were vacant. There wasn't like even old school lock boxes then. So if they're not open, you go in, and I would get in, go around, open the door. And that's how I got started. So, realistically, I've been looking at properties for pretty much 50 years, but over the years, once I turned 18, I started to invest on my own in my early 20s, but I had owned a lot of properties because of my dad before. So he had always been taking me around. I knew tenants early because we owned a lot of rental properties. So he taught me about landlording, why we did it. So I was very advanced and went into a career in law, still doing real estate on the side, and then eventually got into kind of real estate full-time, got my license 10 years ago, built big teams on the on-market side. But I've continued to invest, but I've never been a high-volume investor. Invested mainly in single families across my life. And now I'm getting more diversified as I have more time to kind of wind it down in this back half.
One of the interesting things we've talked about in the past, and is something that I think a lot of people out there preach, and I know you have workshops and stuff for people to share education with them and tell them the good and the bad within investing. But I think one of the things that is overused a little bit is the term, to me, financial freedom, and how people within real estate, and I see you already chuckling, oh my God, I'm going to in 3 years go buy all these rentals and be financially free, which most people, don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But also the reality is 99.999% of population is not financially free. And it's really just a dream like winning a lottery. But curious to hear some of your takes on that with, the meetups and everything that you host with people.
Yeah. First thing that comes to mind is that people aren't chasing financial freedom. They're chasing time freedom. And you can get time freedom for a lot less finance than you expect if you know how to do it correctly. So there's part of the modern investor that's very smart and more streamlined than we were. But what they're missing is they're very short-term focused. So even though they think they're going to be time free, it could only be temporary, because if they're invested in a bunch of bad doors or bad investments because they wanted to scale the number of doors, which people are very excited about, and those doors are bad, you might think that you're financially free until there's a loan call on one of your big 100-unit multifamilies, and then you're in trouble. So I think that it's a little bit different. I don't know that I was ever in search of financial freedom. And again, my dad came from nothing, so he built everything on his own. But I was very fortunate, and he helped me get that way. But I never looked at money, I think, the way that people do now. And it wasn't because we had money, it was because my dad set me on a path to really focus on how to earn money from money. And I think now people are chasing all sorts of different things because of social media. So as you were saying, when I think people are saying, I want to be financially free, the first thing I think of is the FIRE movement and all of the like scams that went along with that. It's not real. It's more like a social media frenzy. And I think people have forgotten, to dig into old school techniques that you and I both know about. I mean, there's people who still read Rich Dad, Poor Dad now and get motivated. I don't know that I would follow what Bob Kiyosaki's saying right now, but when you read that book, you're like, okay, this is doable, but it's about how you're going to do it and really the why behind it.
Yeah. And I think for me, one thing that similar FIRE for people listening, financially independent, retire early. I viewed it as COVID, I think, was a big factor in that because everyone's working from home. Government gave everyone money, and the All In podcast who I listened to actually just had a good conversation about kind of UBI, basically giving people certain money. And they kind of used COVID as example of when that happened, all you did is create bubbles of people buying NFTs and Bitcoin and everything else. And people are not good with their money because everyone wants that instant fame. And I think the FIRE movement got people because of inflation. Real estate popped so high. That's like, oh, you need to get into real estate. And, similar is I have a business and I run my business. Do I want to make money? Yes, but I don't do it for the money. You know, I could go back out and get a W-2 job and make more money than probably what I'm doing right now, managing my business as I get it running. But it's interesting that society, and we talked about this in the past, everyone wants that get rich quick scheme. And, my podcast is Creating Wealth Simplified. It doesn't say it's simple. I try and simplify it for what you should be doing. And one of those is thinking long-term, not 12 months or 24 months, thinking 12 or 24 years down the line. And one last thing I'll add about you mentioned is like the number of doors. I'd rather have one door that's doing really, really well in a nice area than 5 doors in that probably costs the same as that one in a place that, I wouldn't walk around at night. And people they're like fishermen. It's like, how many fish did you catch? It's like, how many doors you have? And people bragging about like how many doors they have. People I know who have the most doors, you have no idea how many doors they have.
Yeah, I agree. And I think people used to ask me how many doors I had. I was like, I don't know. I mean, what are you qualifying as a door? If I own 10% of something, I only own 1/10 of each door. So are you doing the math on that? It didn't make sense. My dad was an asset hunter, and that's what I call myself, an asset hunter. I like a lot of different things, but I'm always judging the asset. I don't crunch spreadsheets too complicated. Obviously, for flips, I run a spreadsheet. And if I'm looking at syndications, someone's done the spreadsheet for me. So I'm just looking at, is this a strong asset to add to my portfolio, just like I would look at for stocks? And I kind of look at everything, startups, things like that. But I think it all boils down to what you started that part with, which is short-term thinking. I really do think that probably about 50% of the people who are in search of financial freedom are just lazy. No offense, but like that's what they're after. They're after something easier. But like you're not usually going to get rich if it's easy. It's just not that easy. You can win the lottery. Hey, guess what? 50% of lottery winners are out of money in a year and go bankrupt. So it's not the money, it's how you make the money, how you keep the money. And it's not even really about how you save money. I do think I wouldn't say, my dad was frugal. People called them cheap, but he liked houses and cars, but then he would get his pants at Caldor. That's his thing. I didn't want to get my pants at Caldor. I like to get other stuff at Caldor, but that was just his thing. But like, there's a lot of advice out there that would say maybe to get your first property, it works to never go to Starbucks and make your own coffee, but you're not going to get rich by not going to Starbucks. You're just going to save money and you maybe have a little bit more for your first investment. But if you do that your whole life, that doesn't get you rich. Compound interests and compound mechanics get you rich. And you can only get that from appreciation and buying things and trading them along the way, just like we have. And you got to take some losses along the way. I mean, hopefully not big ones, but that's how you learn.
First Caldor, that's a blast from the past.
I love that place. That's where I got all my toys, man.
Well, Lechmere as well. Lechmere was good. I liked Lechmere. Lechmere was my favorite. I asked probably half my team today if they've ever heard of Caldera Leachmere. They all look at me like I have six heads.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that. And I think part of the problem too is whether it's social media, everyone's always posting, oh, I made this much on a meme stock. I made this much on a real estate. I'm arbitraging rentals. I'm doing this. And interesting story I'll share is over the last month, I've been cleaning up my CRM database. And I hadn't done it in probably I'm guessing like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And going back, and I have contacts we primarily invest in notes, and I have conferences from 2018 to 2022. And I had 2,000 names. And I just send people out an email, hey, just checking in, clean up my database, see if you're still interested in the space.
Yeah.
Okay. More than 25% of those emails got kicked back, meaning they're already gone. And my response rate is under 10%. And what that shows me too is I don't disagree where I think a lot of people who chase certain things are lazy and they're trying to get rich quick. But also a lot of people will just go and they don't know what they want to do. So they're just like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
They never really focus on or try and learn what they're good at. But then they're just going out and spending $1,000 here, $1,000 there on all these different courses, thinking one of them is going to bring them the Holy Grail.
Yeah, but you know what they do? They keep buying new courses because they think the courses are going to do the work for them. And that's not how it works. They're expecting this DIY thing to just pop and all of a sudden make money. And that's the problem. There's a lot of gurus out there. Of course, we've talked about this. We talk about it on Bigger Pockets. But I still submit to almost anybody that any class that you pay for or mentorship or coaching program, the materials are going to be at least decent. And if you just do what they say and meet the other people in that thing, even if you overpaid for it and you don't think it's worth it, you can make it worth it. The reason why people fail in coaching and mastermind is because of user error. It goes back to them being lazy. They thought if they spent $50,000 for Fortune Builders, that Fortune Builders was going to walk them through the Holy Grail and they would do a flip for them. It doesn't work like that. Everybody who's gone through masterminds will tell you all the relationships are in there. They don't talk to the person who ran the mastermind anymore. They talk to the 10 people who also paid $10,000 because they had skin in the game, and those people are doing deals together. So I think it's really built all around the same thing. Like you said, social media looks attractive. People are talking about things. People are getting baited into buying things. And look, some people are good salespeople. I've bought courses or masterminds and not finished them, but I don't blame it on them. I blame it on me. Or I tell them, hey, this isn't for me. I don't like people that much. So sitting around on a Zoom call if I'm not running it is not really, I find that I'm not going to learn that much, but somebody else can. You have to build the relationships outside because you've been in it a long time. So we both know it's about relationships. The more relationships that you have, the less quote work you have to do to get deals because you're always working on deals because you're building relationships.
Yeah, 100% agree. And perfect example is I took a course recently on some LinkedIn stuff and I have not done a thing with it. So am I upset that I paid a few $100 for this course? I'm more upset that I paid for the course and I haven't done anything with it because the intent was to do it. It's very similar. Now, one thing also kind of you touched on with some of these courses that I think about a lot is a lot of, and it goes back to, like you said, when you're a little kid or younger, there wasn't the internet. There wasn't like, hey, I can go pull a list from PropStream or whatever. There's no online newspaper. You're getting a newspaper and looking at public notices to see what's going on for foreclosure sales or knocking on doors to figure out what's going on. Today, there's so much information on the internet and it's good and bad. And I say that because people who hustled had a competitive advantage back then. I still believe today they do, because even though people will subscribe to PropStream, or I'm just using PropStream because we use it, they'll go pull and they'll do a mailing to everybody and they'll do one mailing. And it's like, oh, I spent $100 or $200 or $500 or $1,000.
Same principle.
Yeah. That's not trying. Are you picking up the phone, or what are you doing to get more deals? And it goes back to, like you said, with networking. Who are you networking with? Who are you talking with to grow your portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, just think of it, based on our experience, knowing each other from the forums on Bigger Pockets. We'll both hop in on a forum where someone will post something that says, wholesaling sucks. I can't get this business going. I sent out 100 letters and, I didn't get a response yet. It's like, when did you send them out? I sent them out like, 3 days ago. Oh, you already quit? Like, you have to send letters for 6 months just to even get a sniff. But it's that classic diagram that you can see, like Adam Grant posted a lot and Liz and Molly. It's a person pushing a rock up a hill,
Yeah.
and they always get to here. And if they just push a little bit more, it will go over, but they always quit before, and then the ball rolls down. And then to do it again, you have to start all over with the big rock. I've always been the opposite. I'll just keep pushing until it's over. And then sometimes I decide, like, hey, I don't really want to do this career. I was an attorney, then I was in the art world, and then I was full time in real estate. But I just like doing stuff. And when we were talking in the beginning about financial independence, retire early, I have no interest in retiring. If I retired from a career, I would go and do something else. What am I going to do all day? I like working. I like trying to make money. I like looking at systems. It's fun. So I have no plans of retirement. I may switch careers again, but I think that's kind of the fallacy. Like, most people who are retired, who retire from like blue collar careers like firemen and policemen, high suicide rate for all those careers, because you have no purpose after that. You retire at 55, or when government employees have to retire, they don't know what to do. Not everyone really just wants to go to Florida and sit around and play golf. I mean, that's okay for a week, but what are you going to do for the next 25 years? I want to be busy.
Yeah, same with me. And for me, and this is where I think a lot of people confuse FIRE with, I'll call it entrepreneurship, because not everyone can be an entrepreneur, and not everyone should be an entrepreneur. And it's, hey, how do I get out of the rat race or the W-2, but also better set myself up when I do want to retire or leave my W-2? What do I do? Because most people, when they leave their W-2, you're right, they just go work and do something else, because golf or pickleball now will get boring, or their spouse will want to strangle them because their person's home and bored all day long. And like you said, I think there's a stat of like the highest rate of death is like the year after you retire.
Of course.
You just lose that will sometimes. But for me, same thing. It's like, if I stopped what I'm doing, I'm not golfing every day. I can go golfing now. I've got kind of my path of what I want to do, but I enjoy what I do. I've been in real estate. I love real estate. Maybe something eventually fix my brain, but who knows?
Yeah, but think about the broken W-2 mentality, which is everybody who's in forums, just because we always are there, I bring them up. People are saying, oh, I want to get out of the W-2. They're like 22. It's like, how are you ever going to be lendable? You have to, like, W-2s are great. Honestly, me at 53, who've been like entrepreneurs since I left the government, like 20 years ago, sometimes I think like maybe my next move is to go back to something that's more full-time, because it's just steady. Because now I can work remote. I still run my hours. I don't know. What's wrong with W-2? It's great. You know what you're going to get. Your weekends are free most of the time. Like, the funniest thing is these people are like, oh, I want to get out of my W-2 so I can get like a 4 family. And then they don't realize, like, wait, now you have like a job times 10 because you have to be available 24/7. Your weekends aren't free if plumbing breaks. Like, the mentality is just, I watched on social media, that person's driving a Lambo from a 4 family. No, they're not. It's leased. They don't have money. Those doors suck. It's a C+ door that is going to be a C- because they don't do the CapEx. And I think that's why, older school people like ourselves are really important. We know they don't always like, especially me, my advice, because I'm just very straightforward. But like, if they don't get that, that's participation things, participation trophies. If you don't have someone in your life who tells you, no, that's a stupid idea, you're going to make bad decisions and you're going to lose all your money. You're never going to get to where you want by just getting yesed along by all your friends.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Creating Wealth Simplified. We wanted to take a moment and tell you more about our passive income fund at Seveney, which is open to both accredited and non-accredited investors. Our latest offering targets an 8% annual return distributed monthly, with the ability to potentially achieve a greater return through our bonus share program. If you'd like more information, reach out to us at invest@seveneyinvestments.com to learn more. Thank you. No, 100% agree. And it's interesting, like the whole W-2 mantra. When I look back at my 20s, I was not close to being mature enough to own real estate. I own real estate, my own property, but I didn't even take care of it. I was lazy. I was immature. But I was at a W-2 that I was working for a company that was a great company. And they were, I don't like using the team militant, but they were disciplined. And everything they did from systems, and they paid very well, but they also had the best people. And I learned from some really, really smart people. And the owner's now a billionaire, and he's one of probably the most respected people in Boston when I was up there. And when I came down to DC area, I worked for a local real estate developer who's one of the most respected townhome and single family developers in the area. And I was doing multifamily. And I started working for a family office who, again, owned a lot of real estate and had a great reputation. And when you see and get to interact with people who have a lot of money, but a lot of power and control, not only just how to learn something, but just how to deal with people, how to deal with situations. You can't learn that at 22 on your own. There was one company I did work for, and between that, everyone had been in a company for 25 years. And everyone this was in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, so 15, 20 years ago, but everyone was kind of from like the 80s mix. So there's no technology, no advancement. Like everyone was just so used to doing things their way. To me, I didn't learn anything because as an outsider coming in, oh, you should do this, that. Well, it's this way we've been doing for 25 years. So when people knock that whole W-2, or I want to be out of my W-2 by 25, to me, you can easily, and you can disagree with me on this, build a great real estate portfolio while working a W-2.
Of course. I mean, that's when you're the most lendable, is when you keep scaling up your W-2 to make more and more. I mean, my first job was with the government for 25 grand. It was 1997 when I got out of law school, 25 grand for the government. But I steadily kept making increases. Guess what? I never paid a medical bill for 8 years when I worked for the government. They had the best insurance on earth, and I steadily kept getting increases. But I think we're looking at things with a longer flow, but people are just, they're chasing the wrong things. One thing that I think of all the time, when I worked for the government, I was a prosecutor, we were all prosecutors. We would all go out to lunch every single day. We were always busy. We're walking to court. We're walking here. I was getting exercise. Now I'm sitting in my office all the time here in this exact office. Not, I go outside and walk because I'm smart, but like, it's not the same. You have no camaraderie if you go out on your own at 20 and you won't go to real estate meetups. Like, you better know people. You're not going to know anything unless you have friends doing the same things as you. And you don't have to pay for the mastermind and coaching. You can find it out in the world. But man, W-2 is the best for camaraderie. I'm still friends with a lot of people that I was lawyers with. And it was a great time to just be like young and working. I think it's great. It's actually weird to me that people are trying to scale it. I love entrepreneurship, but also, how are you going to be lendable? What's going to be your background to get money from other people later? You're going to pay 2 times as much as the rest of the W-2 employees have to pay, if not more.
Well, there are courses out there right now that would teach you to do it subject to, and then get them to seller finance it back.
Yeah.
So you don't need any money. You don't need any money to buy real estate.
You know what the funniest thing about that is? I've said this so many times. You know who the majority of people who do subject to or seller finance deals, they have money. That's why they have leverage to do seller finance and sub to. It's a 1 in a million where you find it. Look, Pace's strategies are great. I'm not going to do subject to, but it doesn't make, I would do seller finance. I've done it. I've sold things on seller finance, but you have leverage when you have the money in the background to do it, because then you can say, well, I'll pay you more. That's seller finance. I can pay you more. Sure, no problem. But I'm going to take the terms for myself. You can't negotiate that when you don't have money. What are you bringing to the table? Absolutely nothing.
It's interesting because in our fund, we do have some, for cash flow purposes, we've done some short-term loans to people. And the people, one of my mantras is giving people money is, I don't give people the money who are begging for it or who need it, meaning like they have no money and like they can't, this deal with dead. It's more of, I have the money, but I don't mind. Yeah, I'd rather keep it where it is versus go through all the hassle of getting it. And I'm okay with paying you 10, 12% or whatever that case may be, especially over a 6-month period, because it's easier. And some people say, well, they could get a bank for 8%. And I'm like, yeah, but the people, like, if you're worth $5 million, and I'm just going to throw some number, borrowed $500,000 from somebody for a year, and at 8%, you're 40 grand, at 12%, you're 60 grand. That 20 grand to them is a convenience fee, is the way they look at it. complete convenience fee of I will pay for the convenience of dealing with not having to go through a full bank and taking 90 days. And we still do everything, underwriting, appraisals, and everything along those lines. But it's just a much simplified process that you're actually speaking with one person, not 27 people in a loan department.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think ease of use and quality of that's a relationship thing.
Yep.
Why would you, if you lend to somebody who has no money, that's called a crisis. That's a housing crisis because they were giving away loans to people who really shouldn't have got loans. No offense to them. I'm glad they got them, but they couldn't pay them. That's the whole problem. So I'd much rather lend somebody who has the money and I know they have the collateral to do it. That's just smart recovery. Or, of course, hard money lenders, they're looking at the property. But
Yep.
people think hard money lenders like, oh, they're just all want to foreclose. No one wants to do a
I
foreclosure.
don't want to foreclose.
No, it's the worst. I mean, like, who wants to go through that process and try to get it back? So hard money lenders in general have such a bad name just because they think they're charging more. No, they're charging more because it's a convenience fee. Like you said, I'm just going to give you some of my money. Here's the points. Here's the rates. You haven't done any flips. So that's going to be 13% and 2 points. Good luck. But we know the asset's worth it, but we want you to succeed. It's a win-win if we all succeed on this.
The one that scares me all the time is when people can't sell a property, so they'll sell or finance it to somebody who's not qualified and they jack up the price and they're like, well, at least I'm going to get this much from this person. I'm like, yeah, but how long are you going to get it from them?
Yeah, for the first month.
They've got a 510 credit score. They got $27 in their bank account.
Right. You didn't take a down payment for the seller
there's
finance.
no down.
Good job.
Yeah. Yep. Those are the ones that, as we get wrapping up, I always like to ask people kind of, and whether it's your own personal story or just something else somebody's told you, what's kind of the one piece of advice? And again, like all of us, we've been around a while. There's been 100 pieces of advice we could talk about, but what's one that you like to talk about or a piece of advice to give to the listeners as well in regards to investing in real estate and trying to build some type of income stream?
Yeah, I mean, I'd use what my dad's ultimate quote was for me, which is "Don't rush life," and I would apply it to real estate. Don't rush real estate. Everybody says buy real estate and wait. Don't wait to buy real estate. But also, that doesn't mean that taking action is buying. But I think everyone's in a rush, like we've been saying the whole time. Oh, I want to get from A to Z. I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 21. You've literally had one job at Chipotle. Like, how are you going to do that? You're only going to do that if you're scamming someone. You can't even hustle that hard. Like, it's not possible. You have to just relax and don't rush. He always used to tell it to me when I was learning how to drive. It's just so in my brain for this time. I would miss a turn and I would just start cursing at 16, like, oh man, now I have to go turn around. He's like, what do you care? Like, where are we going? Like, we're going to Caldor. Just turn around, dude. Like, it's no big deal. And I think that's what's helped me with my mindset over the years. And it's why, I'm focused on the mindful approach to real estate investing. Are there a lot of deals in my life that I missed on? Yup, that's okay. I can't buy every deal. And if somebody else does well in that deal, okay, I'd rather miss one. But I've had very few screw ups. Really, the market has been the only screw up. I've never just completely boned a deal on my own because I'm careful. And that's because I learned not to rush life and not to rush real estate. And my price is my price. I'm a very tough negotiator because I was an attorney and all I did was negotiate for 10 years straight. So it's like, this is my price. If you even speak about another price, you'll never hear from me again because I have no emotional attachment to real estate at all.
And it's interesting, like one thing you mentioned too is, I'll use the term a little bit like regret. And for me, I don't regret not buying properties, or there's I probably wish I would have bought that, or I wish I didn't sell that. But okay, it's not like I think about it every single day, or it's the same thing like, oh, a significant other from high school or whatever the case may be. It's like, oh yeah, I saw him on Facebook, but it's not like I'm sitting there like sticking my head under a pillow and so forth. It's one of those things where you can't change the past. You can learn from it. You keep pushing, and I'm the same way. Try and continue to grow our portfolio wisely and, make calculated risks on things. And most times I like to think things go well. Sometimes you lay an egg, but overall, I'm not going to bury my head in the sand or go back in regrets. I see a lot of people like, oh, I wish I did this. I wish I did that. And I'm like, stop worrying about all that stuff. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not going to change anything. I think it helped me to focus on become. I think I always was self-aware, but I've come uniquely self-aware. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. I know what I like. I know what I'm comfortable with. I'm going to focus on that. But yeah, regret will kill you. I mean, what are you going to do now? There's nothing. One deal? Like, who cares? Yeah, there's an apartment in Brooklyn that I was renting when I moved back from Florida. I really should have bought it. But like I had a lot of balls in the air at the time because it was 2009 and I was getting crushed on two properties in Florida because the economy played games with me. And I'm fortunate I knew what I was doing. So I had a good portfolio that could withstand getting buried on a couple. But yeah, I mean, I think to be a good real estate investor and to be careful with what you want to build is just meeting a lot of people, learning what they did. And we can have this discussion so it can help somebody that maybe we'll never meet not step in the same potholes that we did. And if that helps one person, like this episode's a win. Talking to you is a win because, we're friends now, but we were friends in the forums for 10 years. But stop. If I would tell people, like, stop watching social media so much as a learning tool and think of it as entertainment and learning in a bubble. I follow the people who I know are bringing real information. Other than that, I ignore the algorithm. I just scroll through and find what I find. But it's tough out there. I was talking with my son this morning. I can't blame people for not knowing what to trust out there because it's just impossible. But podcasts are a great way to learn because if two people can sit down and talk for 30 minutes to 60 minutes, they know what they're talking about. There's no breaks. We're not re-recording anything. People understand. And if people aren't going to show up ever and you've never seen them on a podcast or they can't talk for that long, they're probably BSing you about what they know.
Yeah. Jonathan, as we wrap up this episode, how can people reach out to you?
Well, I'd love for them to listen to my podcast, as you said, which is Zen in the Art of Real Estate Investing. That's pretty easy to find. My handle everywhere is Trust Greene with an E at the end. I'm pretty easy to find on social. I'm not someone who says, like, we'll give out my number. I haven't answered my phone in 5 years because it never stops ringing from people I don't know. So I'm easy to find for email on my sites. Trust Greene is my hub site. So yeah, I appreciate being on, and it's good to talk to you again. And I always have fun with you in the forums. We've been in those forums answering questions for people for 10 years. Hopefully it helps them, but if not, nothing we can do about it.
And I think one of the things that we both have a reputation for, good or bad or indifferent, is we're honest with people. It's one of those things where, I was in a forum just yesterday and someone's like, my HOA just banned short-term rentals. Like, what should I do? I'm like, follow the rules. And other people are like, do this, scam them, sue them, do this. And I'm like, why? You're going to lose. It might make you feel better by doing all this stuff, but it's like, you know what? Accept the defeat, see if there's a grandfather,
right?
Move on. Focus on what can you do to get into a long-term rental, not how can I try and screw over an HOA, because a lot of these HOAs, a lot of these board presidents, and if you're a board president, I apologize. I was on a board in an HOA in past. They've got nothing better to do than try and figure out who's trying to skirt the system.
Yeah, your job is to stay ahead of the game and adapt to it as quick as possible. And that is short-term rentals now. Yep. When you see the regulations coming, pivot early. So you're the first one to be at 30-day stay, or just know that you're first. Like you said, be the first one to get grandfathered in. See if there's permits. Make sure that you're filing, when they start to do hotel taxes, be the first person, because then they're going to love you. Yeah. And that's what you have to do when you're dealing with cities. Yeah. Don't mess with cities. I've gotten red cards on flips before. You just have to play nice even when you don't want to.
Yep, exactly. So, well, thanks, Jonathan, for coming on today. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. And as always, make sure to leave us a like or review on your favorite listening station. Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for joining Lauren and I on this episode of the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. Each week, we bring you expert education, experience, and information in a digestible format to help you identify investment opportunities so you can build wealth through real estate and take action toward your financial goals. Enjoy the show, share with a friend, or subscribe to the show and leave us a review.